Hello, everybody. This is Jason Glatzer, your host for On the Road. And we are here in sunny Malta for the Malta Poker Festival on the balcony at the Hilton overlooking the marina with the one and only card player lifestyle founder, podcast guru, and mixed game poker enthusiast, Robbie Strazynski. Welcome, Robbie, to the show.
Hey, Jason. It's good to be sitting here with you. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you as well. And we've had our fun, too. I mean, we've known each other for probably 6-8 years, mostly just talking on social media. We've met once or twice also on the road, but we never really got to sit down at a poker table before. And we arranged, with your help, my help, and Martin Smith, Wouter, all these guys, all the local guys, an amazing mixed game night where for the first time that I'm aware of in Malta, we not only had the usual pot limit super dealer's choice, not that there's really anything usual about that, and the limit version, which was very cool. So how was your experience thus far in Malta, and particularly with that evening?
Having a great time. This is my second time in the country. I was here about 3.5 years ago also for I think it was the first ever Malta Poker Festival at the time. Definitely having a wonderful time. As you said, it's a sunny place. It's wonderful, great weather. Did some touring around here, places I hadn't gone the first time around. So that's been fun. In particular, the mixed game, it was awesome. You know, we did as a €5, €10 fixed limit dealer's choice mix. And I hadn't realized that wasn't like the regular du jour kind of thing, that it's usually pot limit stuff. So it was really cool of all of you to kind of make that exception and have those limits running. Had a wonderful time, great group of people. It's always fun to be around fellow mixed game enthusiasts. And this was my first time playing in a mixed game, not in my home game or in the United States. So some interesting little wrinkles as part of that game that I got to experience as well.
Yeah, the cultures are different as you go from country to country, and more importantly, continent to continent. So in the U.S., when you go play a dealer's choice game, it is always limit. Like I grew up in the U.S. as you did as well, so we both grew up with these kind of games. But then personally, I felt about 10 years removed from even thinking about these games in limit. And it was just fun to get back to the roots. But more importantly, the company was quite nice. I mean, I was sitting next to you, but we also had Martin Smith, who's even written a book about Sweden Special.
Sure.
We had Wouter, we had Adam, it was
Jeremy,
of course, and Andrew joined in on the action as well.
We had Donna Hool, who came in from the States as well, and my buddy Moshe, who's doing photography here for Card Player Lifestyle, Callum Grant from Poker News. There's like a rotating cast of characters. It was a 12-hour session, which is my longest session in quite a while.
Yeah, I didn't want to give up my seat in the limit game, but I wanted to help start the later night pot limit game, which we did get going. I gave back all my profit in the limit game into that game, but even there, we had players coming out from the main event. They were just coming down. They were very curious. We had quite the rail, I would say, once we moved to the privater areas, and even Tanya, who bagged huge stack into day 2, she wasn't done for the night. I want to see what's going on. So her and Brittany both sit down for the pot limit version, learning new games, and that's what it's all about.
Right, and I have to say it's also a privilege to be the source of your profit from the limit game so that you could take that over and spread the wealth over in the pot limit game.
Yeah, I'm a charitable person.
There you go.
But I also saw some new games this week, not just in this game, but in the past week or two, being in Malta for a good part of the month. I imagine it was the same with you, too. So were there any games that you've never heard of before that came up, during the action?
Sure. Well, I'd heard of Spit and Special, but I'd never played it before. And for those who don't know, I don't know the familiarity of the on-the-road audience, but it's basically Dramaha with a little twist, that special aspect being that if you draw one card at the time where you do your draw, it's face up. So the entire table gets to see that card. You can choose to accept it or not. And if you don't, then that clearly, and then you get a face card down, a card down, face down. And that obviously gives some additional information to other players at the table. So that was unique. I'd heard of it again, but never played it before. And then there was this watermelon Man, I don't know. Not necessarily a fan of that interesting abomination of a game.
And that has different names. It's called something completely else in Tallinn and Bratislava than it is here. So when they said we're playing Watermelon, I said, well, explain me the rules of Watermelon. They're like, yeah, 3-board Omaha with points. I'm like, okay,
Right.
yeah, Tripoli, you know.
Right.
Or
Right. In Israel, we call that "ain't gonna play that game." That's not how it's called in Israel. But we had a super stud Razdugi, I believe.
yeah, that was my game.
There
I
you go.
invented
That
a
was
few nights
interesting.
ago.
That was an interesting one. And we had 888. You know, in home we play 777. So the 888 was interesting. Basically it's three players, three chances to win a pot, 8 or lower. That qualifies as for 1/3 of the pot. You have 8 Badugi or better, which will qualify you for a second third, and then you have 3 8s or better. This is a triple draw game. You get 5 cards, and again, limit betting structure. At least when I do it, I don't know if you guys ever do pot limit betting there, but that could get a little testy.
And you mentioned that you play a lot of home games with mixed limit. Obviously, with the situation of poker in Israel, that makes a lot of sense. You can't just go to a casino
Right.
and open up a table. Now, are you guys playing like ordinary like 8-game games where there's even like Hold'em involved, or is it like also the same kind of atmosphere in the home games in Israel that typically fit the mixed limit variety?
The atmosphere is definitely the same because we kind of have like a group of friends who we've all been playing together for anywhere between 10 and 20 years, and my dad among them. So he's the one who taught me how to play poker. So that's always special to get to see him usually once a week or so. I've got sort of 2 games that I play in, one in like my exact place where I live, and then one about half an hour away, closer to actually my dad's office in a place called Renana. So the atmosphere is definitely great. As for Hold'em, that is the one thing that is persona non grata. Why play Hold'em?
Very good.
Why Hold'em, Jason? And there's so many other wonderful games to play. But yeah, it's not just an 8-game or a 10-game. Sometimes we bring back, if one of us does travel abroad and finds something interesting or happens to play in a different home game, we bring that in and we integrate it. And that kind of as a group, we're like, okay, either this game will or will not fly, and we'll try it again. But I think the key to sort of enjoying mixed games is kind of, and maybe this is why perhaps those who favor only Hold'em, aren't necessarily prepared to think outside the box. You need a little bit more of brain elasticity, I like to call it, of like, even if it's a game you've never encountered before, other games you've played, even if it's not poker games, but you can wrap your head around the concepts and, adjust to a new wrinkle or a new twist or something like that. And then, okay, within a few minutes or in orbit, when you play, 8 hands of the game in a row, like, yeah, okay, I can go with this game.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that comes down to also the popularity of online poker tournaments and the fact that No Limit Hold'em does make the most sense. I do love playing an 8-game tournament occasionally. I like playing other games when I'm on the road in a live format, but if you're going to be trying to get the numbers, you need to simplify it. So, you go back to, let's say, the original days of poker. Actually, it was Limit Hold'em. I don't know if you remember, but the Party Poker Cruise and the Party Poker
Million, right.
Million
Yeah.
was actually Limit Hold'em.
Yes.
And as people,
I think
a lot of new people
Corkins may
coming
have won
in,
that one, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
came in, that's where No Limit Hold'em actually gained its popularity. It was always around, but it was because of online poker. Now, I love No Limit Hold'em tournaments, but you'll never see me playing a 2-card cash game unless there's 1 card on the head. It's
Right.
like, and even that I don't like to play, but I'll play that before I play.
For sure.
Hold'em.
There is one game, we call it Shop. Some people know it as Sohei, simultaneous Omaha and Hold'em play, where you'll get 6 cards and you'll split it into an Omaha high for 4 cards and a Hold'em hand. So that perhaps is the only way where Hold'em can kind of sneak in, but still, as you heard, it's a little bit of a variant on it, and you're playing 2 games at once for a split pot.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we played that game the other night here too. It might have even been during the mixed game night that we were both at. But what I would like better in that game is we were declaring before we see, like, it was either right after the flop, but I think it was before the flop. We were declaring these 4 Omaha, not turning them over, obviously, and these 2 are Hold'em.
Correct.
It would be cool to just be able to show down and do your best combination, like you would be doing with not open-faced Chinese, but normal Chinese, make your best Omaha, or like Pai Gow poker, something like that.
Well, cool is one way of putting it. Dangerous is another way of putting it. But I do have to say also, like, part of why I do like, especially, like, I guess, folks, you can already hear it in my voice. What makes mixed games so enjoyable to me is just, again, this brain elasticity. You're paying attention, you're playing different games. There's a lot of fun. And unfortunately, that's one actually the pitfalls of no limit hold'em as well. Sometimes people can get hurt. You can have a massive hit to your bankroll if things don't go your way. And limit games kind of, by definition, prevent that from happening. Everyone, of course, your limits. You should be bringing a certain amount to the table and, beyond that, no more. But, in a game like this where it's a bunch of friendly mixed game players just wanting to have a good time, I personally didn't want to get hurt, and I wouldn't want anyone else to also sort of leave with, like, I had a 4-figure loss. That's a little rough. And, that kind of dampens the enjoyable memory and the moments you experience during a game like that. So, and honestly, that's why, I understand, as you say, to get the numbers in, the game moves quickly when it's no limit Texas Hold'em. That's why casinos are spreading it over there. But, there's such a thing as also like slowly taking your patrons' money and, letting them enjoy hours and hours for the same, 200, 300 euros or dollars at the table for a session.
Good. And are you surprised about the level of mixed game knowledge that's like displayed here? I mean, I know players in Finland, they play a whole different subset of mixed games. The players in Sweden also play a whole subset. Norwegians have, all the Scandinavians do like mixed games. I shouldn't say all the Scandinavians, but it's popular enough there. But then you come down to Malta, you don't really expect that. But I was initially surprised about the level of support here. And I'm wondering if you knew that coming in or if you were pleasantly surprised.
Pleasantly surprised is definitely the way I would put it. And excited, it's always fun when you run into people. Just for example, let's say you're walking around in the street and you happen to be wearing, for example, let's just say a Card Player Lifestyle patch or some other sort of poker, apparel, and then you notice someone else the same. It's like you instantly feel that bond that you have. So too, obviously in a more smaller way, but when you run into a fellow mixed game lover, wherever that mixed game lover will be, you instantly feel that bond of, oh yeah, we've done this before. This is cool. We enjoy the same sort of thing. And yeah, pleasantly surprised and excited by the fact that there are, bunches of people like me here in Malta or who have come to Malta who enjoy a good mixed game. Let's get together and, make some magic happen.
Yeah, and going to that, poker really is like the glue to a lot of relationships. Like there's so many people that I would have probably never met in life just because of our such diverse backgrounds. And then, you realize down deep that they have a big heart, and it's the poker and then the heart, and then you get interested in all this other stuff that they're actually doing, even if it can't bring it into your life, and you wouldn't have those opportunities if you're not into like this niched poker community. So I think it's the same with you from what I've actually witnessed with my own eyes. But have you made any special friendships this week?
This week, well, I mean, the players we gave the shout outs to, I would say, now, we're part of the mixed game family, so that's really fun. And now I know anytime I come to Malta or, when I go ahead and I'm public with a post of, hey, we're going to do a mixed game, or if anyone wants to come to Israel or, they go to Vegas for the World Series of Poker, we will find each other. We're like homing devices or something like that. Specific, solidifying of friendships, I would say, like yourself, we've been communicating a lot on social media, but it's nice when you get that rare opportunity to see each other in person. With Martin, I had never met him in person, so that was a really cool thing. And I'd also say with Callum Grant of Poker News, he was actually one of my proteges when he was trying to just break into the industry. He had reached out to me saying, hey, you're looking for some writers, that sort of a thing. And now to see him working full time for Poker News is, just gives me a lot of pride to know that, he played A-ball and AAA, here over at Card Player Lifestyle. Now he's going on to the big boys. So.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Callum. He's done a fantastic job all week. I've gotten to know him a little bit better too. I was leaving Poker News at the time he was coming in, so we just had this small bit of overlap. And as if I didn't have enough mixed games last night after he didn't have a late night last night. He wasn't working the turbo flight. So I said, let's just hang out, catch up a little bit, and play some open face Chinese. So,
oh boy!
We weren't playing for money because that wouldn't have been fair to him. Because he was just starting out. So I don't like to play for money if it's not like a fair situation with friends. But it was just a matter of points.
He proudly won 107 euros in that first mixed game session, and
That's
I have no remorse for that man. So
no, and it's different though when you're sitting on a balcony like this and just breaking out the cards.
Of course.
And having a chat. But no, shout out to him. Shout out to all my ex-colleagues over at Poker News, even though I do work with Pokerlistings now. do love all of you guys over there and did a great job covering this event, which isn't over yet. We're actually talking on day 2. They're about to reach the money. Wouter, one of our mixed game players, has a nice stack now, so I'm on Team Wouter until there is no more team to be on. But yes, it's been a great event. And I want to circle into your event, but before that,
Sure.
I mean, there's one hidden gem that probably people don't know about you that I find to be actually how I got into you a little bit in the beginning. You know, like obviously it was the card player lifestyle as well, but you had this top pair home game podcast, which was like, you know, really like so many people can relate to, especially Americans growing up in my era. But a lot of people just started playing poker on a balcony table, their kitchen table, and this brings it to life. Now, I know people have to still be listening to this stuff because that stuff doesn't get timeless, but can we see like a reboot of that? Can we like spin the wheels again? Because you're still playing home games, so...
For sure. Well, thanks for that, shout out. And I have to give credit to Bruce Briggs. He was my co-host for the show. To give folks background. First of all, yeah, like as Jason said, you can still find all 365 episodes of the show on your podcast catcher. Just type in Top Pair Home Game Poker Podcast. It's something that Bruce and a friend of his, Eric Nelson, started many, many years ago, and they had gone for. I want to say, I think it was 4 years. My memory eludes me a little bit, but they had gone for 4 years and doing it as a weekly show. At some point, they had me on as a guest, episode 186. Still remember it. And then the time came around episode 211 where, Eric's like, I think it's time for me to part ways. And Bruce reached out to me. He's like, Robbie, would you like to be my co-host? And that was actually my first experience doing poker podcasting, and I started it in 2014 is when I began with Bruce. We worked together. It was every other week for about 6 years, and I guess we recorded 153 episodes together, if my math was right. Still never met him, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. So it's always remotely.
Yeah, it was always remote. He's based out of Salt Lake City, Utah, so it was always a 9-hour time difference for me in Israel, and finding creative times to get together. But that's the beauty of technology. And I want to say just about this show, it's something that, as you say, it resonated. I didn't have any sort of burning desire, I have to be a podcast host, but I was just offered the opportunity. I was like, let's give it a try. And I very quickly fell in love with it, kind of found my own voice, which is, a cool thing. And, thankfully that, I was able to take on other podcasting gigs, over the course of my career. What the unique nature of this show is that, lots of different poker shows have interviewees on and, very famous poker players, all these sorts of things. But the niche was sort of asking all of these folks about their home game experience. And beyond that, as you said, folks like us who we grew up in the States, around the kitchen table and, maybe our dads or moms played in the home game or something like that. Lots of interesting situations come up in a home game, and you don't have a TD or a floor person to make a ruling or something. So what do you do in situations? What type of chips should you buy? And should you invest all together as a group and buy a table? And then who gets to keep it when the game breaks up? So all these very interesting questions that, again, folks with our sort of background maybe never pondered. And I think that's why, as you mentioned, people are still listening to it today. We're still getting altogether about 1,000 downloads every single month, even though we haven't recorded.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, right? We haven't recorded a new show in up close to 2 years at this point. But it's great to know that, the content that we produced stands the test of time. And again, one more shout out to Bruce Briggs, the original founder of said podcast.
So, Bruce, I know Robbie's going to be out in Vegas this summer. You can make your way down there.
Yes.
And I expect you guys to do a reboot of this for one episode. You could do more, of course. Maybe it's the start of something special, and then you can give me a shout out as well. But
absolutely.
I absolutely loved that podcast. I love anything that's a bit different. It's there's a lot of interviews. I mean, I listen to everything, but then some things stick out in your head more than others, and that's definitely one. And then the fact that you were quite brave, I have to say. So you went ahead and founded Card Player Lifestyle. There's obviously the bigger poker news outlets do have some lifestyle reporting, but not to the degree where that's their only focus. And you have, even within that, you have such quite a diverse level of content on there alone. So I know I said we were going to talk about the Mixed Game Festival, but this now is kind of important.
Wait, there's a Mixed Game Festival? Where? When, Jason? No, we'll talk
in Vegas during the summer, but we will get to the dates and times.
Okay.
But it's truly something special to take the leap. You know, it's like, especially someone like me that can relate to the fact that you need to take leaps sometimes. But you were working a job, and at the same time, your love of poker wasn't necessarily, you were necessarily thinking this is going to be like, you know, blow up into what it is. Maybe you were hoping in the back of your mind, but you didn't know which direction it would go into. You took the leap to, on your spare time, with nobody paying you to do anything, you know, establish card player lifestyle. So maybe, you know, you could even go back into what brought you into poker, but I know your background is similar to mine, that, you know, we grew up in the States in a time where friends were playing cards, our parents were playing cards, and of course we're curious, we want to play, and we start playing with our friends for small stakes, maybe even no stakes at times, and that's why we both like mixed games. So that to me is an interesting story, but I'm more interested in the fact that you took this leap. So what clicked in your head? You know, what made you say, I'm going to found Card Player Lifestyle?
You know, it's like some students, when they're in the middle of class, they just sort of doodle, you know, because, I don't know, there's maybe perhaps a little bit of a burning artistic need inside you to express yourself. I will say that I was prompted by a good friend of mine, Avi Bookbinder. We actually co-founded the site together. We were walking on, you know, a Shabbat, like a Saturday afternoon, together in, you know, the place where we were living. And he's like, you know, you should start a blog. Let's do it together. I'm like, about what? He's like, poker. And I'm like, well, how do you do that? So he's like, well, that's the thing. I have the know-how of how to do that, and you follow poker, you know how to write, so we'll figure it out together. And that, you know, from that very interesting seed, you know, the idea germinated, and that's sort of how it started. And, you know, the sort of history of my site is kind of well documented, but in a nutshell, you know, slowly but surely, I kind of found my voice as a writer and realized that there is a niche, as you mentioned, the sort of lifestyle niche, you know, uncovering the humanity behind all of the games that take place, whether it's home games or in poker rooms around the world, and, you know, learning about people's stories. Everyone's got a story, you know, there's always a story to tell. And I found that personally intriguing, and it was always, at the end of the day, I write what I felt was interesting to me. And as the site continued to mature, I found other freelance writers to sort of do the same, you know, just be proud of what you send in, and, you know, we'll go ahead and publish that and bring that to the world.
Yeah, and you actually just explained that very example with Colin.
Yeah,
and he reached out to you. You said, okay, let's see what you can do, and from there he landed something with Poker News, which is really what he wanted to do, because he wants to be live reporting. He wants to be involved on that level, and that level isn't, you know, your lifestyle, not live reporting. It's two separate things, but it was a good entry point for him. And for some others, it's a good entry point, not an entry point, but a stepping stone into, there's a lot of people that just want to focus on the lifestyle. So it could be going the other way around, you know, as things continue to evolve. So it's always, we're one big family, no matter what patches we're wearing, what company we're wearing, you know, we're all out to do the same thing from different angles. You don't get into this kind of work unless you love poker, for sure.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth, and I would say, you know, that whole family feeling, you know, it's kind of a tight-knit group. Any stop you go, whether it's Las Vegas or Malta or, you know, anywhere around the world where there's a poker event and you see fellow industry colleagues, it's kind of like, you, at least me, I'm a big hugger. I want to just give them a hug, and so great to see you again. And it's so great that after a couple of years of pandemic, you know, it's all coming back and we do get to see each other again. So I think, that's definitely a wonderful thing. I will just, circle back to one thing you said about taking a tremendous risk. So for those first 7 years, there was no risk. It was just a matter of, this is what I want to do in my spare time. So, you know, that was just kind of like, again, that artistic expression. And, you know, it was like all of a sudden the traffic started becoming serious, and all of a sudden over time. And, you know, it started to generate some revenue. But that risk is, you know, kind of something I took in March 2017 after lengthy discussions with my wife. Shout out to Miriam. Love you very much. I know you won't listen to this podcast, but I love you anyway.
Hi, Miriam.
You've met Miriam. That's right. And, you know, just took this calculated risk of like, hey, you know, if this is the amount of revenue that doing this sort of poker media thing can generate as a nights and weekends thing, what would happen if we gave it a try and I did it full time, and maybe I could make a living doing it. So the original trial period was 1 year, and I had some sort of minimum thresholds to cross. And the fail safe was, well, I guess I could always just go back to, being an employee and having a job and doing that on the side. But I was very, very highly motivated to not have to do that. And thankfully, by the grace of God, things have just worked out. And year by year, things have grown for everything card player lifestyle related. And just feeling very lucky and fortunate to be doing what I'm doing and making a living from it.
So you have motivation, you have adrenaline, but there has to be a little bit of a fear factor as well. But is there anything that if you could go back in time, not from the point of you making a decision, because obviously that was the right decision, that you would have maybe done differently, knowing what you know now after doing this for 5 years as a full-time project?
Before I answer that question, as someone who's been hosting a podcast of some variety or another for about 8 years, I have to say I am blown away by your preparation and the amount of time and effort you put into researching these questions, and you're a tremendous natural at this, Jason. I'm not just blowing smoke. You're just a few episodes into this podcast, and I really appreciate that you didn't just come unprepared. It's pretty cool, and hopefully the audience is getting some interesting stuff about me I've never really said too much before. So thank you. To answer that question, there's always like that sort of sliding doors kind of feeling. What if I did this differently or whatever? And, I hear stories from those, back in the time, it really was just poker bloggers who were active in the real boom years of like 2003, or more specifically 2006 to 2011. And you hear these stories about like these big, the online poker operators kind of literally throwing money at them of please advertise. And there was just, a tremendous amount of money in the, and liquidity, in the poker world at that time. So there's kind of this wistful thing. I mean, I turned 21 in 2003. I say, what if, I would have thought to be entrepreneurial and started then. But at the same time, the whole collection of experiences that I've had in my life have sort of led me down this path, and I wouldn't have wanted to miss out on that. So, I don't have any sort of regrets in that sense. I guess it would sort of be interesting to sort of take a peek if there was like a movie about an alternate reality. What would happen if we started Card Player Lifestyle right when Moneymaker won, and the site would be almost 20 years old by now or something. But I digress.
And let's now fly ourselves over across the pond. Well, first we have to cross maybe through mainland Europe, eventually land in Vegas somewhere. Sometime in the summer, you're having your second mixed game festival. So I know that you had a successful first one. I mean, I was so tempted. I mean, I think you saw me post, I should be there, but it would have been too much for me just to fly out for this festival. And I didn't want to get wrapped up in the WSOP stuff because that's not my bag. Even though I do like the WSOP, I'm better at these kind of events where everybody has their guard down a little bit, including me. You know, I don't have to be like a fly on the wall as much as you really have to be if you're media at the WSOP. But you don't certainly have to be a fly at the wall at the Mixed Game Festival. So why don't you first share with us, the experience players had at the first one, and then let us know what's changing. We have a new venue. We have maybe some other new things planned, and take it from there.
Sure. So, great layup there. It's really good. Love this setup. So the first one it took place in October of last year when we had the first ever fall World Series of Poker. And it was sort of a culmination of it just sort of made sense to me. I like mixed games. I like promoting mixed games. I've never heard of a festival that is exclusively mixed game focused. Let's create it. If you want to do it and if you believe in it and it has a shot of succeeding, there's a niche there that's not yet filled. Let's, kind of I guess hit the ball between the second and third baseman and try to get a single, bring a guy home. That's baseball for those who don't know. So we did that. It was at Westgate, and very fortunately we had Poker Stars come and offer a real big carrot. We had a platinum pass to offer.
That's sick.
It's huge. It was huge. Shout out to Rebecca McAdam from Poker Stars who liaised with me on that. They've just been always very wonderful to support the initiatives that I've had over the years, and that was big. And I really did try, because it was a first of its kind of initiative, to empty the clip, utilized all of my connections to try and promote it and, make it something that I wish I could attend if someone else was doing it. So that's what we tried to do. I think we would say, as you said, how did people react? Pretty much universally positive feedback, which was just wonderful. Again, like if something doesn't work, at least you've tried it. But to have been there and sort of see the culmination of all of those efforts, which were delayed by a year and a half by the pandemic. It was supposed to happen the first week of June 2020. That didn't happen. But to still see that, somehow, some way we managed to get it all together. We had 3 days of cash games where it was kind of like a building to a crescendo. More people came each day, to a fourth day where there was a $200 tournament. We sold out. We had 124 players. And then, how good do I run that WSOP 2004 main event champion Greg Raymer wins the Platinum Pass. So that was a really good promotional marketing tool for me to use. With all due respect to, Orpun, I forget his last name, from Turkey, it just rings truer when it's a name that people are familiar with. And he had also, $3,000 for his efforts in runner-up. So that's what we did the first time around. And, that whole emptying the clip and seeing if it works, ideally it wasn't meant to be a one-off. It was meant to be like, well, if there really is a niche for this thing and people like it, let's do it as many times as we can and figure it out, and maybe not just in Las Vegas. So I'm just grateful.
That was my next question. Where else can we see it? When can we see it in Europe so I can actually easily go?
Well, one step at a time. And you can't win a tournament in level 1, so we're now on to level 2. I think we're upgrading to a really super. I mean, you can't. Not going to say anything bad about Westgate. It's a great place, but the newest resort and poker room property in Las Vegas. It's a Resorts World hotel and casino. Beautiful, stunning room, 30 tables, and great manager, Gary Hager, who I'm working close with, and that's where we're going to be hosting it from June 12th through 16th. That's 5 days of...
5 days.
5 days, yeah. We got to go bigger. We got to, increase the output here. But no tournament this time. That's going to be a little bit different.
So it's like a cash game festival
basically,
kind of thing like that we kind of have sometimes here in Europe. But
exactly.
Just for mixed games. Which
Precisely.
Sounds like the most beautiful thing in the world to me.
Right? Isn't that great? So I'm excited to be able to put it on. And again, it's like from attending numerous World Series of Poker and other events, I'm like, there's plenty of home game folks like we spoke of earlier in the show. And like, why don't they have a place if you just want to take $100, $200, $300 and sit for a few hours and enjoy yourselves and play 4-8, 8-16 mixed games? That ought to happen. So let's, again, sort of create that and yeah, the response has been good. And now this second time around, we have kind of like the goodwill and the positive feedback from that first time. And, that FOMO of folks who weren't able to make it, of like, it's kind of a good snowball that's sort of promoting itself. And, so that's going to be good. So we don't have a Platinum Pass, but we do have, once again, PokerStars stepping up and, really appreciative, given that big carrot of a live event package.
Sweet.
Yeah. So we don't know exactly which event, but it's going to be flight, hotel, and a seat in the main event of whatever live event, they decide to put out there. So it's going to be a
Platinum Pass Light.
Perhaps. Something like that. So a Platinum Hallway Pass, perhaps. So, something of that nature. And, definitely gotta, those who do very kindly step up and support beyond PokerStars. I want to shout out to Faded Spade Playing Cards, BBO Poker Tables, Upswing Poker. I don't want to forget anybody.
Quite a lot of sponsors. That's nice to see.
For sure. And of course, Run Good Gear. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. On D&B Poker, of course.
Okay.
So all of those folks, as people who I've met, the founders of those companies, over the years, who again just thankfully enjoy what I do, and they saw, hey, that first one was a success. We're going to go ahead and support the Card Player Lifestyle Initiative again. And there's a lot of free merch that we're going to have. Everyone who doesn't love free merch, right? So it's not just come and play the games, but you might get a hoodie. Or Poker Go also is going to put some nice merch there as well. Might get a free hoodie. You might get a book. Speaking of books, we've got 5 people coming, wonderful poker players, to sign books. One of them, Eli Elezra, my good friend, who I translated his autobiography, Pulling the Trigger. He'll be there. He plays at Resorts World regularly.
It's worth coming just to meet Eli.
Oh, yeah.
He's a friendly guy as well. So it's like he's
Absolutely.
not one of these high-stakes guys that isn't unapproachable.
Oh,
Anybody
for
can
sure.
come up to him.
And he probably, my hunch is that, after he finishes his book signing, he'll probably come and mix it up in a 4-8, so you get to play with Poker Hall of Famer Eli Elezra at your 4-8 table, perhaps. We've got Chris Wallace, 10K WSOP horse bracelet winner. Has a new book coming out. With
Fox has a book coming out.
Yes, he does. With one of the Mizrahi brothers. I don't know which one, but he'll be trying to bring one of the Mizrahi brothers with him to do the signing. We've got Bernard Lee, who's got Poker Satellite Success. He'll be signing his book. Fossil Man, Greg Raymer.
Okay.
He's got his book, Fossil Man's, I think it's Winning Tournament Strategy, something like that. I forget the exact name. And the fifth book signer will be Dylan Lindy, who wrote Mastering Mixed Games. How apropos, we'll be kicking off the festival with that one. He'll be coming on June 12th.
That's
so
sick.
Lots of
Okay.
good stuff, lots of good value. And I will just say also, $4 max rake per hand, and that fourth dollar only comes out at the $80 mark of the pot. So
Wow.
Tremendous value if you want to go ahead and join us from June 12th through 16th at the Card Player Lifestyle Mixed Game Festival.
And you mentioned, I believe, that it's 13 tables. I just want to be clear that
30.
30 tables. So it's,
I don't know if we'll have that many full, but that's how many the room has. Yeah.
13 would be make your reservations. 30 it's like, okay, maybe on a Saturday night give a phone call to get on a winning list. But maybe not, but 30 is pretty big capacity for that. So come one, come all. If I can make it there, which...
You can make it anywhere.
Yeah, I can make it anywhere, but I'm planning my U.S. trip after the WSOP, so I don't think I can do 2 U.S. trips in the same time.
Cool.
Unless it's like main event just to pop on by, but I would love to be there as well.
And to be clear, I just want to say I'm not out to compete with the World Series of Poker by any means or any of the other wonderful tournament series that are going on around town, but it's more of like, it's cash games. Come take a break for a few hours, splash around. If you're made day 2 or day 3, just relax, decompress. And, there's going to be a bunch of folks, bracelet winners beyond, the folks I already mentioned, who you can come and mingle with and just have a good time.
Now, I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but you did mention Eli Elezra,
Sure.
and you have a special relationship with him, and he recently made the Poker Hall of Fame as well. So how did this all come about with Eli? How did you get to meet him? I know, there has to be a bit of an Israel connection at first, but it's more than that to have this special friendship and relationship.
Yeah, definitely very fortunate to count him among my very good friends. He's been to my house in Israel, which is pretty cool. I've been to his house in Las Vegas, so it's a genuine friendship. We first met at the first time I attended the World Series back in 2016. I was with my dad, and it was so cool because, at the time, I didn't know him. He's just, the famous Eli Elezra we saw on High Stakes Poker and winning bracelets and the WPT Championship. He comes over to me, like he recognized me. Robbie, how are you? And I'm just like stunned, and my dad is right, like, how does he know? And he says, welcome to the Poker family. And it was like, really, like the way he said it, I really felt tremendously welcome. And, it was incredible. This is before I knew there was an autobiography or anything like that. So it was just so cool of him to just come, recognize me, I guess, I don't know, and just introduce himself. That's just, like you said, the type of guy he is, salt of the earth kind of guy. It happened to be that the following year, I think, the following year, 2017, he released, written by Matan Krakow, a good mutual friend of ours as well. He released the Hebrew version of his autobiography, and the book signing was being done in a bookstore in Tel Aviv. I was invited to attend, and I just, as a media person, I went to go ahead and cover it. You have a famous poker player in Israel. It's always a cool thing. And, I was standing in line waiting to get my book autographed, the copy of the book. And he says, Robbie, after the thing come, Matan and I, we want to talk to you. From there, it's a very cool confluence of things, someone who, my native language is English, but I speak fluent Hebrew. Living in Israel is kind of like the opposite. He moved to America, I moved to Israel, and knowing poker. So you can get plenty of people who speak both languages, but also with that poker knowledge in depth is sort of like the added value I was able to provide. A professional business relationship sort of ensued from there, but from the very beginning, it was much more than that. We met in Las Vegas, in Los Angeles, and, Florida as the months went by, and I was doing the translation of it, and we worked on it together. We sat, and he took me out for a shawarma, and it was just super cool. And, obviously getting to sort of know his story and his life better. You meet his wife. I met his children.
We could have a whole podcast about his story. But, I mean, it's all
yeah.
in the book, but he has crazy stories.
He does, and hopefully you'll have him on at some point, so we can help you out with that if you need to get in touch with him. And just again over time, he comes and visits Israel once or twice a year as well. He's got family who's living there still, and when he came, I was like, Ellie, would you come and join us first of all for a charity poker night? He says, for charity, absolutely. He drives an hour and a half on his own from Jerusalem, and we made a whole 30-person, 4 cash game tables and raised. This is, I have to note, he's coming from playing like 200, 400 out in Razovdov during the World Series of Poker Europe, and he comes and it's like a little equivalent of 50-cent $1 mixed games, but just to sort of make fans happy. He's just a wonderful guy, and he drove again another hour and a half back to Jerusalem afterwards. Then he came to my house later. It's just a wonderful guy, and again, like I said, I could just keep going on and on about him, but truly a wonderful human being. Has been great to me and my family, and I feel very fortunate to count him among my friends.
Shout out, not all the players that make it that far in life remember where they came from to begin with, so it's refreshing to hear that Ellie is one of them. That's something that we and the poker media are well aware of. There's a lot of other people like that, but I'm not going to start singling other people out because then I may leave people off the list and assume that they're not like that. But let's just say it's a diverse group as you move up stakes, just like there is in other forms of life. But at the end of the day, there's great people, at the low stakes and great people at the high stakes. You can get very grouchy people at the low stakes and very friendly people at the high stakes, and mix it up any way you want. So it's nice when you can develop that special relationship. And I'm sure Ellie is very happy about the relationship as well. So it goes both ways. If he wasn't friendly to you, who's going to translate his book?
Right.
It's like, come on,
I suppose so.
So it does go both ways. But
thanks for saying that.
Now, I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon, but there's one other thing I want to talk about, and we touched base a little bit about this when we're playing cash games, because that I'm very curious about what it's like for you're modern, just for the record, you're a modern Orthodox Jewish person that likes to travel and plays poker, observant of Shabbat, observant of most of the rules of Judaism to a very strong degree. So what is it like being like in such like a select group traveling around? Do you feel like do you feel comfortable in all the surroundings when you're traveling? I know you obviously have to make special preparations when it comes to food, but how welcoming are the people?
It's funny you say a select group, because if the group's out there, I'd like to meet you guys. It doesn't really feel like much of a
select group of one.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know many other people who do this sort of thing, like you said, to the degree that I do, as far as traveling and also playing poker, on the, I don't know, maybe
there's a few poker players, let's say,
here
but they
and
don't
there
play
you
the
find
multi-day
ones.
events because they can't play on a Saturday.
Sure, exactly. So, I would say they were challenging, but at the end of the day, this is a lifestyle that I chose. I choose to be modern, Orthodox, and observant to the degree that I am. And with that, yes, indeed, does come challenges, but you don't sort of look at it that way. And if you look at everything that you do as a challenge, then you go ahead and make changes. But it's more of like a positive challenge, and I look at the benefits of doing so. The challenges, I say, well, the good Lord managed to create the world in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh. Well, so too, Robbie can get his work done in 6 days and take 24 hours off for the Sabbath. And that's not easy to do. And it means that sometimes, Friday, you see the sun setting and the deadline's looming, and you won't get your work done. But, there's always Saturday night, and you just sort of get right back to it. Like you said, the kosher thing, in the States, it's a lot easier. A lot of kosher food you can find pretty much in every supermarket. In Europe, it's more challenging. Had to bring some more stuff with me from Israel. But, shout out to Chabad, Chabad. They've got, kind of people all over the world who are devout Hasidim of the rabbi of Chabad, who sort of make it their mission of like wherever you are in the world. It could be here in Malta, could be in Nepal and Kathmandu. I mean, really any place in the world you'll find a Chabad emissary. And there are Israelis and Jewish people who travel the world over, and yeah, they've got sort of needs, and they see this as their mission to minister and to assist to the needs of their fellow Jews around the world. And I'm grateful that different places I've been to, Bucharest, Bahamas, Malta, Madrid, everywhere you go. Except in Sochi. There was no one in Sochi for some reason. There's always someone there who, you kind of like...
but how's your Russian? If you maybe it was the language barrier.
Niet. We'll leave it at that. But
and now we won't be making trips to Sochi anytime soon. That was a different time.
I'm grateful I got to do that while it was around. But so yeah, that is a challenge, and of course, I do make it clear. To everyone that, hey, I'm going to be offline, from Friday, but don't worry, all the content that I did promise I will produce, I will get it done. And, thankfully been able to do that. And I got to say, like I said, I don't look at it as a restriction. I just say it enables me to push the pedal to the metal, 6 days a week, knowing that if I need to, I can crash and truly embrace the restfulness that being offline and not doing electricity, not on your phone, no email, nothing like that, not getting into a car. And when you don't have those notifications pinging in your ear and distracting you, you can really have some, it's an opportunity to have great, meaningful conversations. You saw me on Shabbat. I was around the tournament room, but without my phone. I wasn't working. And just sort of like talking to people and, getting to really enjoy those sorts of conversations, not business related or anything. And that's what I embrace about Shabbat. You get to sleep a little bit more, which is nice. But yeah, like I said, it's a challenge. It's unique, but I embrace it. And I do realize that, I walk around the tournament floors around the world, and I wear my kippah very proudly. My yarmulke is a skull cap on top of my head. And at the same time, that's also a responsibility, to behave in a certain way and in a way that's becoming of someone who I believe, ought to call themselves modern Orthodox. And you don't want to allow yourself to tilt. Certain things could challenge you and make you upset, whether it's at the poker table while playing or elsewhere. But someone who doesn't necessarily see a modern Orthodox Jew that often, never visited Israel, and I'm the first person they encounter like that. My goal is almost to show us that, hey, I'm normal just like you. I do things a little bit differently, and maybe they can look at me like, hey, that's pretty cool. Maybe I should go and meet some more other, modern Orthodox Jews out there, and maybe we'll even share a kosher meal together at a restaurant sometime.
Yeah, it comes back down to what we talked about earlier, how all you really need to have in common is the love of poker.
Absolutely. And
an open mind. If you have those two things, you meet so many people you would never think to meet.
Yeah.
But I need to turn the tables a little bit.
Okay.
Not you interviewing me. We're not physically turning that table.
I had a whole slate of questions.
We've been there, done that. Not in a long time, but we've been there and done that.
Sure.
It's turning the tables to the other way around. So now you like to play poker. Mm-hmm. You work in the poker industry. Mm-hmm. I imagine that not everybody in your community is accepting of that or understanding of that. So I'm kind of curious, maybe they are, and I just have a misunderstanding of it. But it seems like, it doesn't necessarily fit into, let's say, the ultra-Orthodox for sure. But even with the modern Orthodox, it could go one way or the other. And they may think it's the same as, let's say, being a slots machine addict, as a poker player. They may just not understand it's a strategy game. It's like chess with some luck elements, but et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And I'm it's fun. I'm really glad you asked that. I don't get asked that question very often, certainly not in any sort of public forum. So it's cool to be able to provide an answer to that. Accept is not something I've ever had a problem with, at least as far as I know. Everyone's like, okay, everyone, you do what you do and I do what I do, and that's fine. But understanding usually seems to be that critical element of like, so many people the world over, they equate any sort of poker. It doesn't have to be no relation to Jewish or Orthodoxy. It's just like, oh, you're poker, so you gamble for a living or something like that. So it's always that challenge of explaining what it is that I do. And I'm not a player, right? So I was like,
well, you are, but...
Well, I mean, not a professional player.
Yes.
So they think, oh, well, so you just go ahead and play for a living, and that sort of thing of like gambling for a living is frowned upon, at least according to the halakha, that's not, that the Jewish law, that's not what one ought to be doing, because they're quote unquote, excuse me, not contributing to the world, but that's, another matter for a Talmudic discussion. But I will just point that out. But that's not what I do for a living. I do media. We've talked about the type of stuff that I've been doing over, well over a decade in this industry. And, quite honestly, I aim to do precisely the opposite, is to actually bring something forth into the world of value and stories and things of interest. And there's something, in Judaism called a Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying the name of God. And, even in this incredibly unconventional line of work for someone of, modern Orthodox Judaism, I do very firmly believe that there is a way to go ahead and do that again, as I said, the way one tries to conduct themselves, and with the head held up high and being very proud to try, as challenging as it may be, to sometimes to balance those two separate interests and beliefs.
Very good. It's very interesting to me to even just delve on this subject as well. But most of my questions, I think, would be of private nature out of curiosity, because it's, I don't come from a place of offense. I come from a place of understanding. Whereas the questions I ask may wind up being misinterpreted beyond this point. Now, we gave a lot of shout outs to a lot of people.
Yes.
But did we leave anybody off, or is there anything else besides Card Player Lifestyle which you have to visit just to get some nice lifestyle pieces, or you do a podcast for Cards Chat as well? So shout out to those guys. And of course, your Mixed Game Festival as well. Is there anybody that we left off that we can just leave now with a goodbye?
Goodness, I hope not. And I guess I mentioned my dad, I mentioned my wife,
maybe your kids?
Well, okay, there you go. Shout out to Abby, Ami, and Shira, 3 wonderful kids who, they have a daddy who does all of this interesting stuff, and I hope I try to provide a decent example. Everything we've talked about for the last bit during the show, that leaves out my whole being a daddy, which I am also, 95% of the time when I'm not abroad. And I miss them now. It's been almost a week since I've seen them, so I'll be excited to see my kids again. And I will say just one little thing about Abby. She's 14 years old. She's my oldest. Phenomenally talented at graphic design, and she started producing some great graphics for Card Player Lifestyle and drawing it herself. So I don't know that she'll ever, quote unquote, be a part of the family business or anything like that, but it's a special measure of fatherly pride to bring her work to light, and it's getting some tremendously positive feedback from very experienced graphic professionals as well as friends of mine in the industry. So that's pretty cool.
Is it the new logo with the patch? Nobody can see what you're wearing, but it is very impressive. And I even commented to you before that this stands out. It looks very cool. It has a nice color scheme and nice design.
The color scheme is in honor of my LA Lakers, purple and gold. But Abby did indeed conceptualize the design. It's meant to sort of subtly reflect the poker table. It's an oval, and you can see it from all the way down the hall. Nice bold letters. But again, a shout out to Abby. Love you. And yes, I do pay her for her work, and it's a matter of being able to teach her how to do a spreadsheet and ask people to pay you on time, all that sort of thing. So there's a lot of good education that I can do from that as well. Beyond those shout-outs, just I'd say, follow me on Twitter at CardPlayerLife, and by all means, please feel free, if you want to just keep up with what I'm doing in the media world, to subscribe to my newsletter. Just, again, visit my website, and there's plenty of forms where you just insert your email address, and you go ahead and keep updated on everything that's going on with Robbie Strazynski.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us, Robbie. Once again, this is On the Road with Jason Glatzer here with Robbie Strazynski. Definitely check out his website for more information. He's very active on social media. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jason. Do I get to give you a hug now?
Yes, but let's hit the stop on the recording, and then it's hugging time.